Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. Guys, thanks so much for the kind words in the last video, but now it's time to focus back on Napoli because the season does get underway in just a few days. And before we take a look at predictions for the season and all that, we are still in silly season, guys. We are still in the middle of a mercato. Players are coming in, players are coming out, so I'm not going to make my season prediction until after the mercato closes. So I'm going to hold my thoughts on where I think teams will rank. But what I can do is I can preview the Verona game. But before that, just a quick rundown on the latest news on Napoli's mercato. So item number one, guys, we have a backup goalkeeper. Salvatore Sirigu has joined Napoli on a one-year contract. I think he's a great addition to the team. He brings experience. He's great for the dressing room. And it's one of the reasons why Mancini brought him to the Euros last year. Now, does this mean that he is Meret's backup? Actually, we don't know that because even after we bought Sirigu, Edo De Laurentiis put out an interview on a Costa Rican radio and he said, we are still looking for a keeper and a striker. That means that potentially we might get Navas or hope to get Navas, and maybe Meret goes off on loan for a year, tries to rebuild his confidence somewhere else, and then we reassess him next year. And speaking of PSG, they want to buy Fabian. The offer on the table seems to be around 20 to 25 million, which Napoli would be willing to accept. The only thing here is that Fabian himself wanted to go to Real Madrid rather than PSG. Obviously now if he commits to PSG, the whole idea of going to Real Madrid might never happen for him. So he's trying to convince himself of what to do in the next few days. In terms of a replacement for Fabian, it seems like if we do sell Fabian, we might switch from a 4-3-3 formation to a 4-2-3-1 formation, which obviously would require one less midfielder. So that's a key point. And actually, if we sell Fabian, then that definitely means that we need a number 10 because we can't just put Zielinski all by himself up there. I think if we do sell Fabian, then Napoli will go full steam ahead with Raspadori. They've already made a really significant offer with 28 million plus 5 in bonus. Sassuolo are playing hardball. They want at least 30 plus 5 with easier bonuses and potentially a 10% resale. Now, personally, do I think that Raspadori is worth that amount of money? Probably not at this stage, but he does have potential over the next few years to really be some player, and maybe that's the type of money that you need to spend at the moment for a 22-year-old who's in the Italian national team. At the moment, what he does have compared to a player like Zielinski, for example, in that number 10 position, is that Raspadori has a lot of cazzimma. He has a lot of aggression and he's very dynamic. So I think that's maybe something that Napoli lack at times. We're very skillful, we're very technical, but we lack a bit of aggressivity. And Raspadori, although he is small, he definitely has that fire in him. And speaking of strikers, Petagna, our bulldozer, has finally made a move to Monza. It's a loan for 2.5 million with an obligation for Monza to buy him for an extra 10 million if they save themselves, and an extra 1.5 million related to performance bonuses. I think Petagna did an alright job at Napoli, never really fit the system, but it's not really his fault. He's got a very defined set of physical characteristics, strengths and limitations, and we just weren't able to use that to his advantage. But the few times that he did play, I think he still contributed what was expected of a third striker. And a few very important goals last year, for example, at the Marassi, the winner at the start of the season, or how can you forget that bicycle kick later on? And I think that Petagna going to Monza will allow Simeone to come to Napoli. Simeone is a huge upgrade. He scored so many goals over the last 5-6 seasons across different teams. That means he can adapt extremely well. He can play with all sorts of different mechanisms. He's still young. He's got that desire. He's the only player to score a hat-trick against us in the last 10 years. He's been able to score 4 goals in a single game. He's quality. He, I think, needs a bigger team now. He's been playing in the lower ends of the league. I think with better players around him, he can take that next step and become a serious striker. And I think he'll give Osimhen a good rivalry this season if he does join. Now, in terms of when he joins and on what terms, Napoli and Verona are still figuring that out. I think from Verona's side, they would like him to join after Verona-Napoli. I think the last thing they want is to sell him to Napoli and then he goes and scores against them on the first game of the season. I think it's smart for Verona to wait until the next game. And in terms of the formula for the payments, there's a difference between the clubs on whether we buy him on loan with obligation to buy or on loan with a special access to buy him. So guys, that's the key Mercato news. Now let's focus our attention to the first game of the season. Let's discover a bit what Verona is all about and how we might play that game. Now guys, before anything, the news today is that Claudio Garella, a former goalkeeper for both Verona and Napoli, has passed away. He won the Scudetto in 1984-85 with Verona, in 1986-87 with Napoli, as well as a Coppa Italia with Napoli. I'm sure at the start of the game he will be remembered in some way, and maybe that's a way for Napoli and Verona to finally bond over something, because usually Verona-Napoli games are quite intense and they have a very fierce atmosphere. Now, Verona last year finished 9th on 53 points. Not a bad season, but a few good games in a row, then a few bad games in a row. For example, their last 5, they only managed to win once. Then they went on other streaks where they won many consecutive games. Having said that, the team this year is extremely different from the one last year. First off, the coach is different. Tudor left, he went to Marseille, and instead they have Cioffi, who used to be Udinese's coach, and Udinese also played quite well last year. In fact, they gave us a bit of a scare in the game that we played against them, where we won eventually 2-1 with a double from Osimhen, and actually they were quite good on the counterattack, so that's something that we need to look out for. Interestingly enough, the last time we played Verona-Napoli, Osimhen also scored 2 goals there, so if you do happen to be a betting man, maybe putting 2 goals on Osimhen for this game as well might be the winning thing. But yeah, expect Verona to come out aggressive, to come out wanting to hit us on the counter. I mean, in the last game, Verona had 19 fouls against us, whereas we only did 9 towards them. They had a red card as well. And watch out for Davide Faraoni. He's scored twice in the last 3 games against Napoli. So although he is a right back, he makes some good runs into the box, and we need to be careful because he is a threat and he's got a knack now for scoring against us. Obviously, Verona have also lost potentially Simeone, who's not going to, I think, feature in that game, but also Caprari. So their top 2 strikers from last season are not going to be around. Obviously, they have Lasagna, who's an experienced Serie A veteran who's still a threat, but a lot of change in this Verona side. It's very different. I think it does lack some of the quality that it had last year. They brought in Henry from Venezia, who scored 9 goals last season. It's not really a superstar signing. I can't see them do better than they did last season. And actually, I've put them in my head as one of the teams that might really struggle this year to stay up. And judging by the first official game that they played this season, first round of Coppa Italia, where they lost 4-1 against Bari, maybe that's a sign of things to come for them. Now, in terms of how Napoli might play this game, let's start with the obvious. I think the defense is already set. We've got from left to right, Mario Rui, Kim, Rahmani, and Di Lorenzo. I do expect Kim to play ahead of Juan Jesus because it'd be a huge negative signal if we play Juan Jesus instead of Kim. We spent a lot of money on Kim. He's been training with us. He's been playing the friendly games. He looked solid. It wouldn't make any sense if he didn't start as well. We got to give this guy some trust from the get-go. In terms of goalkeepers, I know we just talked about Meret potentially leaving and Sirigu coming in, but I don't think it's the right time for Sirigu to play his first game. He's barely even trained with the team. Meret's done all the preseason games. It might be his last game, but I'm sure he'll still want to do extremely well. It's in his best interest if he wants to make a claim for a spot in another team. In midfield between now and Monday, who knows what happens with Fabian. My guess is that we might not sell him by then. At the same time, I don't think we'll risk him. That's what we did in the friendly as well. The previous one that we had, we didn't risk Fabian. I don't think he will play a significant part in the game, maybe just come on as a substitute. So I think our midfield will be Lobotka, Anguissa and Zielinski. And then 3 strikers, I think we're going to go with Kvara, Osimhen and Lozano. But watch out, because in the next few games, as I said, we might switch to a 4-2-3-1 formation. But guys, let me know if you think that there's another formation that we might play with. If Spalletti has something up his sleeve, let me know what you think about this Mercato down in the comments below. Guys, that is everything. I wish you guys a great weekend, a great season. We'll have loads of fun. And as always, Forza Napoli sempre. Ciao.